British Columbia's wildfire crisis has just entered a much more dangerous phase. One fire near Summerland exploded to more than 13,600 hectares in roughly 36 hours, while firefighters were dealing with extreme fire behavior, shifting winds, dry fuels, and evacuation orders affecting an entire community. But here's what makes this situation even more concerning. The Bald Range Fire is not the only major fire threatening British Columbia right now. Another massive blaze in the Fraser Canyon is getting dangerously close to major transportation routes. Several highways are already closed. More than 21,000 people have been displaced from their homes, and officials are warning that new lightning-caused fires could appear across the interior this week. And there is one highway in particular that officials are watching very closely. Because if that route closes, a huge portion of BC's interior could become extremely difficult to reach by road. So what exactly is happening across British Columbia right now? Which fires are growing? Where are evacuations still in effect? And what happens if conditions get worse over the next few days? Here is the latest wildfire situation across BC as of August 10th, 2026. The Bald Range Fire. Let's start with the fire that has completely changed the wildfire situation around Summerland. The Bald Range Fire started Friday evening, August 7th, about 15 kilometers west of Summerland, and it grew at an extraordinary speed. Within hours, the fire had already reached more than 5,000 hectares. By Saturday evening, it had passed 10,000 hectares. And by Sunday morning, BC Wildfire Service had mapped the fire at approximately 13,618 hectares. That's more than 136 square kilometers, burned in roughly a day and a half. The initial spread was driven by strong southwest winds, pushing the fire northeast towards Summerland and Okanagan Lake. Officials described the early fire behavior as extremely aggressive. The fire reached rank 5 and even rank 6 behavior during its initial explosion. That matters because rank 5 fire behavior involves a fast-moving flame front and long-range spotting. In this case, embers were being carried as far as 1 kilometer ahead of the main fire, creating the potential for new fires to ignite far ahead of the main front. And while fire behavior moderated somewhat on Sunday, that did not mean the danger was over. As winds shifted toward the west, more extreme behavior returned along the northeastern portion of the fire. BC Wildfire Service also warned that fuels in the region remain exceptionally dry. In other words, it may not take extreme winds to make this fire dangerous again. Why today could be critical. And this is one of the biggest things to watch over the next several hours. Overnight relative humidity dropped to around 33%. That's poor overnight recovery for wildfire conditions. Normally, higher humidity overnight can slow fire activity. But when the atmosphere stays dry, fuels don't recover much moisture, meaning the fire can remain active through the night and quickly intensify again during the day. BC Wildfire Service also warned about the potential breaking of an atmospheric inversion. When that happens, warmer and drier air can mix into the fire environment, potentially causing fire behavior to increase rapidly. And there is another problem. Lightning is expected across parts of the interior this week. That means firefighters could be fighting existing major fires while new fires begin at the same time. Summerland remains under evacuation. As of the latest update, the entire district of Summerland remained under a mandatory evacuation order. That means roughly 12,000 residents are affected. Firefighting resources assigned to Bald Range included an incident management team, dozens of firefighters, 9 helicopters, and heavy equipment. Structural protection crews were also deployed to help defend buildings. Power crews were working in the area because of downed lines, and although electricity was partially restored in parts of Summerland, officials stressed that power returning does not mean residents can safely return home. There are still active hotspots and dangerous conditions throughout the area. Officials said re-entry could take days to weeks, depending on how conditions develop. The fire threatening BC's highway network, but Bald Range is only part of the story. Farther west, the Aninsley Creek wildfire has become a major concern because of its location near critical transportation routes. By Sunday, the fire had grown to approximately 517 square kilometers and was still expanding. And this is where things get particularly serious. The fire had moved within roughly 9 kilometers of Highway 8 and about 12 kilometers of Highway 5, the Coquihalla. Why does that matter? Because the Coquihalla is currently one of the major routes connecting the lower mainland with the BC interior. Highway 1 through the Fraser Canyon is already closed. Highway 3 is also closed. And Highway 97 has additional closures related to fires in the Okanagan. So if the Aninsley Creek fire threatens or closes the Coquihalla, transportation into the interior could become dramatically more difficult. That is one of the biggest developments officials are watching right now. More major fires across the province, and there are several other fires adding pressure to the system. In the central interior, the Peril Lake Complex is currently one of the largest active fires in British Columbia, covering roughly 1,364 square kilometers. It has contributed to a major closure on Highway 97 near Clinton and has forced evacuations from the town itself. Near Osoyoos, the Sinlahekin wildfire, which originated in Washington state, has crossed into British Columbia and grown to more than 570 square kilometers. Meanwhile, the Quilchena Creek fire near Okanagan Lake has forced thousands of properties under evacuation orders and contributed to a major closure of West Side Road. And in the North Okanagan, the Bradley Creek fire near Vernon has been classified as being held. That's one piece of relatively good news. But even there, the damage is significant. The Okanagan Indian Band has estimated that at least 230 properties were destroyed on band land, although assessments are still ongoing. 102 active fires, and the numbers are still moving. Now step back and look at the entire province. As of Sunday evening, BC Wildfire Service was tracking 102 active wildfires. Of those, 45 were out of control. So far this season, there have been approximately 895 fires across the province, and we're still in the heart of wildfire season. That means this isn't necessarily the peak of the crisis. There are still weeks of elevated fire danger ahead. More than 21,000 people have been displaced. Behind every number is a family that has been forced to leave home. As of Sunday, roughly 21,700 people had been displaced across British Columbia. Another 9,700 people were under evacuation alert, meaning they needed to be prepared to leave with very little notice. Emergency shelters have also been under pressure, particularly around Penticton, which has become an important reception center for evacuees. And the human toll has already become devastating. RCMP confirmed that an 80-year-old woman died while attempting to evacuate the Meadow Valley area northwest of Summerland. Authorities believe her death was related to the wildfire evacuation, and the BC Coroner Service is investigating. This is currently the first confirmed wildfire-related death in British Columbia this season. What happens next? So where does the situation go from here? The short-term forecast remains concerning. Southern interior British Columbia is expected to remain hot, dry, and windy through at least the middle of the week. The drought conditions affecting the Okanagan and South Thompson are expected to continue, and lightning could create additional fire starts. That means firefighters could face a difficult combination: existing megafires, dry vegetation, shifting winds, and new ignitions. There is also no major rainfall expected to provide meaningful relief in the immediate future. And that is why officials are warning people not to wait until the last minute to prepare. If you live anywhere near an evacuation zone, have your essentials ready. Know your evacuation route. Know where you would go. Monitor official emergency alerts. And if an evacuation order is issued, leave immediately. The biggest things to watch. So, as of August 10th, here are the developments that matter most. The Bald Range fire has burned approximately 13,618 hectares and remains out of control. British Columbia has 102 active wildfires, with 45 classified as out of control. More than 21,000 people have been displaced. Several major highways remain closed, and officials are watching the Aninsley Creek fire closely because of its proximity to the Coquihalla. At the same time, changing winds could cause the Bald Range fire to intensify again around Summerland. And with lightning expected across parts of the interior, the number of active fires could increase. The situation is changing quickly. The numbers you heard in this video could look very different by tomorrow. So if you're in British Columbia, especially around the Okanagan, Fraser Canyon, or southern interior, do not rely on social media rumors. Follow updates from BC Wildfire Service, local emergency management, RCMP, and official highway authorities. Because right now, the biggest question isn't whether the wildfire season is serious. It is how much worse it could become before conditions finally improve. Stay safe, stay alert, and follow official evacuation instructions.